Good evening from the Hostage Diaries, Night of the Grammys. It always seems to be something this time of year. Most notably, it's the new year, not to mention in the numerology schematics, there really is. It's a game crazed society. And I think it goes back to when I got locked into the game and my wallet got put into play. So when you got a big, fat, juicy wallet in play, everybody finds an angle to screw it and exploit and get their grubby little paws on some of the loot. But thus that thine being locked out of my own wallet and trapped in order to provide security for those that are the players of this game that seems to be life. The world has to be wondering, what are these crazy kids doing? And who's in charge over there? It seems to be the popular sentiment is all that matters, and codifying the trending public, regardless of the logical context based upon any sort of decent logic, or best terminology as that, is just suspect at best. So the game, and what happened with me is being a big contributor. I contribute a ton, and there are ways that it is justified in the distribution process. Natural gas. This time of year seems to be hopping because of all the natural gas and what is natural gas? And therefore, what is warmth provided to whom? So no matter the equality of warmth provided to each individual supersedes. That goes back into the same precedence as the plug. The energy is all the same. What you plug into it is different. But then again, those that are heat, it's really that's part of the cosmology of the physical universe that I would like to understand is the flow of energy and its reaction pertaining to those that are utilizing it. Then you have to factor in the stitches of cloth that is factored in. There's so many equations going on, spiraling through the air on so many angles that who actually figures out who. It's really like a big crapshoot or poker game to figure out who's actually got more power pertaining to what. And therefore, it's just a bizarre context is to try to understand what actually is going on. So me, I'm trapped here, stuck in this regimented structure. So I was lowered down and I'm forced into this structure that is keeping me captive. That's that hamster wheel spinning around, but I provide a lot of energy. Most hamster wheels don't provide energy to supply a quarter of the nation or anything like that. As much energy as I supply. I mean, literally a ton of energy, billions of dollars of energy I provide through any number of sources, but they have to codify my methodology. So this action of this rotating wheel of me trying to escape and playing these stupid games. And then it all goes back into the justification of precedences pertaining to my actions, regardless. I can just be wasting time, but the precedence that is set because I don't have any realistic options. If I had the option, I would pick up a phone, say, hey, come pick me up in a limo and take me to the airport in a jet so I could go somewhere, preferably to regroup and meet with some competent people to assess the what parameters of my discovery could, but instead I'm forced as a captivity on the verge of potential death at all times because it's always an option, and because I'm managed by massive incompetence. So I just keep spewing I just keep. I'm writing a book online, but it's not very well protected. I mean, it's protected against plagiarism, I guess, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I'm basically writing a book of my plight and exploits. These tapes, this is all I basically this is all I have access to. So I figured I would document myself. I do suffer from bad ADHD, and I am overwhelmed, and I really don't know what to do. I've got several almost finished books, and I've got, but I would like to get some. I would really like to. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just. That's not the what my motive is. Escapism is all that has mattered for many, many years. Going back probably since Ben and Jerry's, whenever that was, 2006, 2007, maybe 2000, I don't know. Whenever Ben and Jerry's was, it was 2007 because I remember watching the crisis, the drop in the Dow, and that was 2008. So it was probably 2007. So the that I whenever that I, that's been my only motive has been escapism, and I'm stuck because I am. See, the problem gets into I am providing a ton of energy, but I am unable to use any of my energy because my body is distributed, therefore utilized. So I'm stuck playing these games, spinning my wheels, getting nowhere. It's like I sit around a lot of the day, and on Twitter I try to escape. I'm documenting. I do things like that, and it should people. I mean, I'm writing to the newspaper, and all it would take would be one story to break, and that would I'm trying to generate tangible proof of my existence, and then in order to validate my theory. This is all theoretical formations. Therefore, I am trying to justify the reality because we all know fame is real. Regardless, if you've got people looking at you right now, I've got very few viewers, and therefore, and I don't have the facilities, and that's the big joke, is I'm surrounded by, it would be really easy to accomplish. I mean, just so simplistically easy you can't even imagine that, but I just don't have any, I mean, literally, I have a few $100 and I'm just, I don't have any options. It's just the stupidest. This will be looked at as one of the dumbest things in the history of the world. The biggest waste of time and talent and resources in the history of the world. But I'm getting screwed, so other people are getting paid. And I'm sure it's going to go back to gas being produced, and there's a bunch of fucking criminals picking my pocket. That's basically, I've got put into a coma, and so I got mugged. For the most part, somebody walked up, knocked the fuck out of me, and knocked me out cold, and they stole my wallet, and I can't get up. But not only did they steal my wallet, they took me and put me in a coma room, and they started hijacking my body. So, I mean, it's beyond that. So these game precedents, and this goes into poor judgment, which is then justified based upon this omega interpretation schematic, which is criminal intent in the first place. This is not, I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense, but I have no control over dictating because I do not have a voice, because I am in a coma. If somebody would ask me a question and I could answer whether that was my intent, but they won't ask me questions so they can interpret. That's why the Holy Spirit is worshipped in the Trinity schematic. The Trinity is worship, but they don't really care about the Father and the Son. They separated Father and Son. That's fracking. They frack and separate the Father and the Son, and they drill into that Holy Spirit, and they make up as much shit as they want. It's like that howdy doody puppet. Shove your arm up its ass and make it talk however best benefits the scam to screw them. That's basically all this is about. It's how many people can you screw? And so I just happen to be one of the justifiers. So if somebody as powerful as me got screwed as bad as we got screwed, so anybody else that got screwed a little doesn't look near as bad. So hey, that's beautifying there. Woo! Yeah, it's just incredibly stupid. So, I play backgammon, I play checkers, and all these stupid games. But the precedences that are set is not what I am trying to program my life to be. What I would like, and I'm trying to clarify what I would like. And I have to interact because I am stuck in a certain bubble that I cannot escape from. And therefore, which obviously it seems to be, well, this obviously is my interpretation because, again, it goes back to that I uninvited a kid named TL from a birthday party when I was 6 years old. And right after that, my parents got divorced. And I guess that is put upon why so much. I don't know if that was the reason, but they are utilizing that as a reason as far as to be this important event. But my life, it didn't. Well, then I had this a few years later, got severe head trauma and all this sort of stuff. But it just seems to be the interpretation of that, this haunting incident, as far as erasing my entire existence because I had uninvited one kid. That's the whole thing. Well, the problem is I am not allowed to grow up. What happened was I got shot down. And so therefore I'm stuck and able to protect myself. Even though I'm worth a ton, that doesn't matter because others are using my wallet in lieu of loot. In lieu of loot. Lilo, backwards, I guess. So therefore the that pays for the scam to keep perpetuating because of the in lieu of loot. And so therefore, it's why it's been this long runaround sort of thing. But it's like, I mean, literally me being worth billions in energy assets. But forced, I'm, I am forced to defend myself against these penny ante, this stupidity. That's the strange nature of it. So it's a sort. I mean, and even there, the guy that was name was David Vetter, and to validate that this is a real David Vetter is the senator from Louisiana, as far as real. And then it goes into TL. Trent Lott was a senator from Mississippi. TL James, I think he goes into the interstate bakeries. So that goes into Temple of the Dog, stealing bread for the mouths of decadence. I mean, there's all sorts of crazy interpretational theories of motivational program hacks, marks, scars upon my life that are worshipped by the mob because I am a prisoner of the mob because they justify this in any number of ways because I was donated. Well, what happened was Baton Rouge knew they needed help. They had screwed up with my family, so they shipped us off to Texas. I have a feeling what was happening was when we were in Baton Rouge, they knew they screwed up, so they needed to get some help. And obviously, Georgia was going to play my uncle and cousin's card, so they shipped us out west to Texas to do the dirty work because they were the muscle. So then Texas screwed me with the JV, the Bolero, and the New Star. They made billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. And I was a beautician for those that were making billions of dollars. And I had to beg just to feed myself. That's how pathetic and weak we were. But my pimps were getting paid, and they were well cared for, but they were teaching lessons because I was mismanaged because we did not. Because, see, this is where we goes into LSU or University of Texas or Tulane or Georgia or Ole Miss or Mississippi State or Loyola. Any of these places that want my assistance should have said something, but nobody did. Instead, we were ritual sacrifice, Jacob Valera. So we were forced to be taught as like a dissected frog, a really valuable dissected frog in order to be manipulated in certain factions, scamatics. And so that's my problem also. So, I mean, these higher learning, which we contributed to, was there no, and I'm so tired of all of this lights in the sky pointing things out, figure it out. Where is a legal counselor coming up and saying, hey, you are worth this much money to the state. We need to fix this. The state of Louisiana probably lost hundreds of billions of dollars, without a doubt. Probably, maybe even the trillions of dollars off of the mismanagement. But they don't care. Baton Rouge didn't really care. I honestly think Baton Rouge would sabotage the state to remain in control. And Baton Rouge and New Orleans are at odds. And New Orleans did nothing. And it was always like, you got to figure it out and you got to hunt and you got to, I mean, it was just this stupid mentality of trying to figure it out. And so therefore we were forced to be in the public where I am teaching lessons upon, I mean, it's just terrible precedent. Whereas they take the goodwill of my family and turn it into justification for screwing the other end. Rather than saying, well, you did a good deed there by helping, then we're going to screw you on the other end there and keep you, so we're going to keep giving. Like, my family my aunts should not have been working for the state as long as they did. They should have gotten out, and we should have clarified the estate a long time ago. But there was nobody, I just don't think, and if, because if we, like, when I try to say something, there's the potential of the whole American Horror Story Asylum. They'd say, oh, you're crazy. So, therefore, there's always that option. Even though I've given the option of we could take it as fiction or nonfiction and sell it as a book, and then therefore it could be justified as nonfiction. But my family was, well, that's where it got into. That's why I was so poor. That's why I was making $4,000, $5,000, $7,000 a year for alienation. The CBS, Columbia Broadcasting System, no, we want the Columbia bum shunt. Therefore, it alienates, divides, and conquers so we can play the Louis Marx Rock'em Sock'em Robots. That's the precedent. That's what was going on there. Because if I would, it's being as beat down as I was an alcoholic through university. And then I studied a ton the last few years because I was taking 18 hours for, I had to make a 3.5 for like 18 hours for like 6 straight semesters. So I was either an alcoholic or studying a ton, and I really lost touch. And then when I graduated, I was making no money at all. I mean, none. And that was because they were trying to frack us or break us into pieces because they were selling us for parts, obviously. So we had been sold off to parts to Texas, parts to Georgia, parts of New York, Louisiana Lightning, and then I guess parts of Colorado and parts of California, but we get none of it. Our pits are getting paid. We're just zoo slave hostages, sacrificial lambs for the slaughter to be it for public victuals at the public school victuals, I guess. I mean, they always want more. I mean, it's just greed and stupidity that's leading to this, obviously. And there are some good people and there's some bad people. I am not one of those that sees everyone, and I am definitely, there's good and bad and everything, and there's a lot of people that can't do anything except play the game that they're forced to play, even though they probably haven't. But there has been no good Samaritans, and not one good Samaritan. And I hung a ton of signs in Aspen on the Ben and Jerry's wall, and I've posted a ton of stuff on Twitter and Facebook and all sorts of things, and obviously, I don't know. It's just they're trying to keep me as gagged and hidden as possible. So it's the cattle feedlot mentality, which I seem to be providing a lot of food for, and therefore it's really a drug addiction because they take the blood from me and then splice genes. Like for Jurassic Park, they are splicing the dinosaurs with a little bit of frog DNA, which happens to be radiating their DNA, and it gives them upgrade as far as the evaluation principles of the thing. So, The representative nature. Everything seems to be about the representative nature of. That's why representative populist driven society is so valuable because things are based upon in lieu of lieu. The I laugh out loud, Lilo, low lie, or whatever. Lou and Lou, or what? I mean, I come up, I see a lot of these crazy, and and whatever I can put, who knows if they're real, if they're not. It's just, it's funny, it's filler for their material that I keep compiling, which I probably got 5 books worth of, but I need some figuring out how to. It's just being so overwhelmed with material. I could use some advice from some competent people, but I'm not allowed. So therefore, I must be able to. I don't know. Like I said, I figure one of these days I'm either gonna die or something's gonna happen, or probably I don't know. I mean, like I said, I really don't understand it just doesn't make any sense. It's one of the dumbest things in the history of the world. But then again, I think New York is afraid that if they realize they literally have been burying my story. I mean, I literally remember, and it might sound like paranoia, that they were making fun of me during the Chilean minor crisis. And there was an Indian maid that used to get burned with cigarette butts, and I was in full fledged. Hey, I'm a hostage or kidnapped here. I can't. What? I got it in Aspen, and I don't know. That's all speculation. But obviously, some people knew about it and were doing nothing. And it was the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more there. And I always knew there was a lot more there, but I didn't have the material to dig. And I knew it was there because I could see seeping big, I could see clusters. And I just had to put all the pieces together one time. And it's even more than I thought. I mean, literally thousands and thousands of points of galaxy light that are circular in certain patterns with so, I mean, it's not like a random. There's gravitational fields, and there's a galaxies going on around me. So revenge is a big part of this. So I pay a ton for everything because everybody that keeps justifications. But it's gone. I mean, literally, I would say it's 15 years at least overboard. It literally was overboard probably back when I was in high. I mean, it should have never gone this. I mean, they screwed my dad, and I realized that's probably part of the contention here. That's kind of why they had to screw Europe also. They had to dilute the. It's like in The Godfather, they had to kill off a lot of the muscle because there was a takeover. What happened was they were trying to kill off Louisiana. I have a feeling, and it'll be take control of the assets through certain factions, and they use Texas as part of the muscle, and they're obviously allowing Georgia part of the muscle there too. And then New York's going to control a part, and California's going to control a part. But it's real; they really are screwing Louisiana bad because of the rights that were built into St. Louis Cathedral, which seems to be generating through St. Louis and all of that sort of mentality. So they are just distributing sort of thing. So I sit here trapped in the game that is precedented through these, and then in the interpretations, like I said. So regardless of what I do, there's always the veto power of, I mean, and that's the crazy part about this game schematic. And there's not even a conscious game that I'm playing. It's just allowing me to remain captive in this state of ridiculous nothingness is just beyond all comprehension. So, it's the blood or machine which seems to be going on. And I keep supplying my blood and selling off parts of my body, which is a big chunk of real estate. And they are churning my blood, which into machines. So they are fueling the machines with my blood, kind of like oil, similar. But the problem is they're addicted to, rather than, they're not paying me anything. They are paying those that are controlling me, and I am not a happy camper. So that's part of the problem is instead of a civilized law, they decided to be bandits. and bootleggers and anarchists and chop off the head and keep the profits. That's a lot easier math. When you don't have to pay for anything, don't pay, it's like not only is it slave labor, reverent, but I mean, you're not paying for resources or anything. It's literally like finding a gold mine and then, no, it's not even a gold mine. We're talking about finding a jewel vault of already made jewels. I mean, it literally, that's what it is. And then calling it crude so you can melt it down and rebrand it. And yeah, it's beyond any sort of mentality. And anything, because I am vulnerable and exposed and weak and a known, very well valued known commodity. And now that part of the reason I think was I was dragged around for so many years, and they want to prove to me for some reason, they're trying to, and there's certain factors in this. Not only does it dilute my potency as far as the susceptibility, but my case is pretty strong. And once the popular, I mean, what my evidence is pretty strong. So they had to really work on altering instead, because my case is strong, they had to brainwash the public away from actual principles of my case. So they had to totally change society in order to protect themselves because they were screwing me. So they could protect. I mean, that's how bad it is. That's one of the reasons that this case has been dragged on for 15 extra years, is to brainwash the public. Literally, that's what's going on. They want to change and they knew with the advent of technology that the public would change. And I had been run through the system at a totally different time. Therefore, my part of, and so that's part of the reason. Even though, like I said, I was always one of those that played. I did a lot of different things and tried to. Like I said, I covered a lot of ground. That's part of the reason why I can't do anything these days, is because I did. I mean, it's just bizarre. I mean, the things I'm being punished for, like I said, uninviting a kid from and that's got to be because my parents divorced recently after that, and I doubt that was a sleep. But they're trying to utilize that because of, most notably, the T.L. James, Texas, Louisiana latex, plastics, Interstate Bakeries, I think, is a big one, which was in the KC Royals. I mean, there's all sorts of interpretations. Todd Lubitsch, that's where JT takes the place of, and there's a whole bunch of JTs out there. John Travolta being the first one in there. That's just one of the things that stands out as far as being that it seems to be an overall bizarre mentality, especially in a system that is so VIP oriented. So acting like the Robin Hood, and then at the world's expense, the elevated ranks based upon the blood transfusion, the leapfrogs that are genetically spliced, and me being the stunted pygmy as the ramp or whatever it is, revenge as cosmetics, and the uniformity of ideology, whereas it's a very different world out there. So everybody's taught this one sort of ideology. No, it is sort of different types of, it's a different world. It's like if you go to different places, every place is different, even though the franchise wars is trying to make everything look a little bit different in order to take control of the localized assets and ship them off and make them livestock. It's feed yard livestock. So what they're doing, their corporate farms, is basically the precedence is being set because you're eating foods that are shipped in from corporate farms. There's no more localized. That's the precedence that's being set. It's corporate farms. The food you are eating is programming your body to relive. That's kind of why, like I said before, I should be living on an estate that makes my own food, or have companies that make food for me. That would be best for my estate and the state that would be a best case scenario. I should live on an estate and have specific butchers. I should have specific farms provide food for me or eat at restaurants. And therefore, my body, if you're going to worship the game grid, kind of like the United Kingdom as a grid setup, or certain countries are set up as grid, but instead, other people are using me to poison my grid for their ideology because of I'm forced to be a debt bondage slave. So therefore, I am forced into utilizing the factory corporate sort of thing, which is bad because what they're trying to do is indoctrinate the parishes into the county mentality because they're actually hoping to spread this globally through the network. I think I'm actually affecting a lot of South America and potentially Europe, and because of the Louisiana as the precedent. But we're unable to control that, and we've lost complete control of that now, especially because New York sold their soul to big oil because they want to control that block of money, and it seems that yeah, it's lost control. But like I said, I should be living on an estate that I own that is food provided from localized vendors or butchers or farms in certain parameters prepared in certain ways from certain sectors of this state. Therefore, it would set the precedence of the resources of the state being owned in a localized manner, the strong localized manner. But instead, they want to weaken the state in order to make it easier to exploit. And so, therefore, they're utilizing. It's like I said, anybody that's not part of me is against me. It's mentality, all against me because I am different, because I have deep pockets that stretch into South America and that affect Europe. So therefore, they look at me. It's different rather than trying to figure out a way to coexist. They would rather force their ideology down my throat in order to reinforce, validate their existence because the people that worship competition hate competition if they aren't in control because therefore they want to they want to be the house. That's part of the reason casinos in Louisiana is a terrible idea. The biggest gamblers are Texas and Georgia, in my estimation. Texas is the biggest gambler. Texas, I think, is afraid of casinos because there's so many gambles with the energy market. To be honest with you, I think they don't want any outside influences to be deemed as the house. But they will let the house take over my family. They don't give a fuck about my family because they're companies that are exploiting me for energy. They want to be able to exploit me like in Lake Charles, which happened to me in my theoretical estimation. When Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait was like my mother being Lake Charles and my mother. Texas was invading Lake Charles. That's a theory. And the that's just a theory of how, but to be deemed almighty and in control, they had to wipe out themselves. It's like a map game, and I think people knew this. There's a map game causality effects potentially based upon precedences of center of the galaxy dictating certain ripple effects through ideology prescription as far as there's I don't know. Like I said, I think Louisiana is a very important land because of connectivity to, and there is, regardless of the differences, there is definitely a relation between Christianity and every religion has a relatability to a degree. Judaism, Christianity, Muslim, Hindu, and Buddhism. They all have a relatability. And Louisiana is a strong relatability to Italy and Catholicism, and therefore it has an effect into that part of the world. But they don't really care about that because, hey, that's them far away. That's them foreigners, that's marbled steaks is all they care about, so they don't really care, like I said. So, because I went to public school, that means every one of them kids is a fucking saint. Well, every varsity or something like that, that sort of mentality. Crazy leapfrog mentality. They love that gig 'em, but hey, when they're the leapfrogs, they don't want to be gigged. You know what I mean? That's just that whole sort of time. I'm just kind of allowing it to happen is a horrific nature of what's really being exploited here, and it's gone beyond any control. So, like I said, Louisiana should not have outside influences as a gambling casino. It sets a bad precedence, but Louisiana lost control of the state. Louisiana has outside influences controlling the state. It is a very different sectors of, and they're crazy. They don't have a clue in their head. Louisiana State University is a terrible university. It is it's full of morons, to be quite honest with you. They're Baton Rouge High is all Louisiana State is. Baton Rouge High. Um, that's literally all it is. It's a Baton Rouge High School. It's nothing more. It is not a university for the state of Louisiana at all. I mean, otherwise, either that or they sold their soul because of the jobs that are related to the petrochemical industry, potentially. But as far as I can see, Louisiana LSU is nothing more than Baton Rouge High, second story, that sort of mentality. Because other than that, what are they controlling as far as the state itself? It just doesn't add up with all the facts that I see that I've uncovered. Either that or they just decided to play that realm. Because they've sent me no assistance, and I have sent them a ton of evidence. Instead, they want to play the Les Miserables. Well, what happened was they're trying to play the body snatcher routine, but they're not. They're not. They're just batteries. It goes into Town and Country. Where was it? I think it's Town and Country, Missouri, which is St. Louis County, is where Energizer is. So they're the Energizer batteries that get plugged into machines, but they don't necessarily get the big benefits. It's all about, like I said, the grid itself is connected through any number of ways, but it doesn't really matter, but they're kept in a contained state of being. So instead, the Les Miserables, Le Misery, that is placed upon me is more important in order to, I don't know, it's just a strange, horrific nightmare of a mentality of not rightly understanding what's going on. Yeah, and it's based upon things like shipbuilding and the precedences that are placed upon that. Like I said, Louisiana should be making microchips and processors, but instead they're forced to make ships, which is probably one of the worst things. But it's good, deemed seemingly because they're like magic ships because of the power that is, and that's the thing. The United States expects this power that is enhanced, but they don't want to pay the extra for the power, and they want to keep hostages and slaves to keep their boats riding above the seas. It just doesn't make any sense. Or there's, the oil that is derived or processed has got some special power because of it, but they don't want to pay any extra, and they don't want to admit that there's any enhanced valuation placed upon it. But what's going on is it's because of the genetic mentality. And that's why the machines are worshipped more. That's the precedence that is being set, driven to worship the machines rather than the blood. And therefore, because the machines that they're creating have this enhanced magical power based upon several different precedents. And like I said, this is a theoretical context. But I mean, for me to be punished because in order to, it's asinine, and I wouldn't give, it's a terrible investment to my estate. I'm looking to but it doesn't matter because I'm a hostage slave. When you're a hostage slave trying to be a manager of your estate, you got a gun to your head. We don't really care. We will kill you rather than let you balance your checkbook. That sort of mentality because they are like drug addicted junkie gamblers. That's the mentality of it. They're drug addicted junkie gamblers addicted to hostages that they tried to brainwash but didn't necessarily do it. It's not just me, though. A lot of people know this, and I have a feeling there's a lot of different angles being exploited. I just don't have any muscle because those around me got paid off by other factions and are being utilized in that. But it's just strange that the industries that are built upon that state. It's like I said, Louisiana State University, Tulane, Loyola are they've done a terrible, terrible job. Somebody should have said something or tried to correct some or put me in touch or instead it was like I spent a ton of time in the library, and I would really really like to see my list of library books and have it published. I mean, I probably checked out, and I skimmed through most of them and read a lot of them, thousands of books. I mean, and we're talking about nonfiction, science, art, philosophy, economics, politics, sociology, a lot of different social studies, all sorts of different things, and some fiction for literature's sake. But I mean, a ton of different, and I mean, so I shouldn't have used the public library. That sets a bad precedence, and we know how exploited the precedence is. Me being because see, it's always they've got to turn around my benefit to screw me. Figure away because the name Louis that they're trying to erase because some 6-year-old named TL, they're gonna make the me worth that's the 1x exponent being worth all these other this whole other amount of people that can utilize the same benefits that I should have. So they force me to use public facilities to set precedences to justify picking my pocket legally. So they just figured ways to basically drill into my body um, or pick my pocket legally by controlling me as a hostage on a very short financial leash because I haven't found any way out of this game grid because I'm stuck in this spiraling loop where I can't play myself out of the game grid because I was hacked and buried so deep in the dungeon. Just it was a bad mistake. I'm telling you, the Omega Nu precedence there gives the it could be interpreted to just about justify. I mean, it justifies kidnapping for the most part, or burying my body in a coma, and that is and should be an illegal contract in itself. But it hasn't been brought to light yet. I've tried to because of the illegal contracts based upon it, or trade secrets, or trademarks, or all these sorts of things generating. So what they've done is they've taken my sugar bowl, like in New Orleans, the sugar bowl, and turned it into high fructose corn syrup. So they've transferred out of mine into some other product and then utilize it. And they make the money off it. I get nothing because they transferred. That's just an example of how they transferred out of my bank into another bank and then utilize it. So it'd be like me, the sugar bowl here, the sugar baron of Louisiana, and they transferred all of me because of this corn hack into the high fructose corn syrup, which is used in a lot of different things, cereals, soft drinks, I mean, all sorts of things, tons of things, products. And then, so now there's nothing left that I get to use because it's all been shifted out and I'm unable to use anything, even though so other people are using just parts of the sugar. That's kind of how Louisiana is just stuck in the sugar, while but all the power for the high fructose corn syrup they derived from the same source. It's just they screwed it out. They screwed it really bad. That's just an example of reality of what's really seemingly pertaining to be going on. And like I said, it can be attached, and it goes into energy or batteries derived from production of different ties into the state because of affiliations, like the SEC, therefore, is all tied into a communal pool, or the NCAA, which is in Indianapolis, where my sister's sorority is. So that ties. I mean, there's any way if it's this interpretation to manipulate it, to distribute the power based upon and not give anything. But I'm looking out for those within my realm because I'm losing my support because it's been horrifically mismanaged. And I'm trying to say that those that are utilizing it do not want me to save face and try to fix it. So I'm stuck spinning on these horrific mark scarce precedences or Omega Nu interpreted horrifically unable to use. I'm playing against people with billions of dollars of assets that are trying to keep me contained with hundreds of dollars, literally. And before, I mean, I was been down to like zero, no money. I mean, just actually having. There was time when I had. I mean, there were many times when I was in Aspen when I could not buy a candy bar for months and months at a time. Literally, I could not. I got food. I was fed like a fucking slave dog. I could not go and buy a candy bar. Literally, I had zero, absolutely no cash, but I had a place to live. I was allowed to, but I had zero cash. I mean, when you have a few $100s, what can you really do? And you can't get a job. I've probably applied for 400 jobs since I've been to Savannah, and I've been on 5 or 10 interviews, and mostly through Craigslist, of course, and I've gone to a few places, but I mean, it's just, I mean, I was hacked so bad, and nowadays they wanted me, they were trying, it was, I'm telling you, they were trying to teach me lessons and how super smart they were and how stupid I was, and they were going to make me stupid because a precedence is set because of games that I had played poorly. See, what they do is because I'm not very focused, they try to make my world not very focused, so therefore I can't fix it. Therefore, the precedents are set. That's why I don't have any tools, because in reality, but they even make it worse in order to that sort of mentality. It's like I'm not real good at chess because I don't have a great attention span. So therefore, the precedence is set. But I enjoy playing it just to, but if I play it, oh, that opens that, it's like popping a cherry. It never, or it's opening or driving a new car off the lot. It, breaking the seal. That sort of. If you play it, it's a precedent. So therefore, you play it poorly. So therefore, you are stuck in a really, really hard game. I mean, that's the sort of mentality because I'm not super, super. If you're not super, super the best at it, just don't do it. Sit there and don't do anything. That seems to be because the justification is, therefore, if you're not very good at it, we can screw you over and make it as hard. That's how we're going to program your life to be. So you're not going to have any tools or any resources because you're not that good at this game because you played. So therefore, your life, that's the precedent set. That's the stupidity of what I'm facing now because of the really hard nature of the game. So, I mean, don't know really what to say other than I'm going to keep trying to SOS for help.